The night history began. Tonight. There is no rush. You do not need to remember names. You do not need to follow timelines. You do not need to stay awake. Tonight, history will not be loud. It will not shout dates or battles. It will not demand your attention. Tonight, history will simply sit beside you and whisper. Long before history had a name, before it was written down, before anyone decided what mattered and what did not, there were nights. Very quiet nights. The kind of nights where the world felt endless and human life felt small. No cities. No borders. No kings. No wars recorded in books. Only darkness, fire, and breath. The first silence. Imagine the world before words. Not before language, but before meaning. A time when people spoke, but did not yet know they were telling stories that would outlive them. The sky was darker then. Not because it had fewer stars, but because there were no lights competing with them. No lamps. No windows glowing softly in the distance. No screens. Only the sky. Vast and indifferent. And beneath it, small groups of humans, huddled together for warmth. They did not know they were ancestors. They did not know they were standing at the beginning of something vast. They only knew the cold, the hunger, the relief of fire. Fire was not comfort at first. It was danger. A living thing that could warm you, or burn you, or vanish without warning. But when it stayed, when it crackled softly through the night, it became the first storyteller. Flames dancing against stone walls. Shadows stretching, shrinking, changing shape. In those shadows, imagination was born. The first stories were not about heroes. The earliest stories were not grand. They were not about victory. They were not about destiny. They were about survival. About which path led to water. Which sound meant danger. Which season brought death. A story was not entertainment. It was memory. And memory was life. Someone would point at the darkness and say something simple. A warning. A reminder. And others would listen. Not because it was interesting, but because it mattered. Because tomorrow depended on it. Those early humans did not think in centuries. They did not imagine futures. They thought in nights. Would we survive this night? Would the fire last? Would the animals stay away? History, in its earliest form, was nothing more than a quiet hope that the sun would rise again. When time did not yet exist. There was no calendar. No year. No month. No sense of being early or late. Time moved only by the body. By hunger. By sleep. By pain. A long life was not measured in numbers, but in memories. The memory of a harsh winter. The memory of a flood. The memory of someone who did not return. Each memory was a marker. Not written. Not carved. But carried. And when someone grew old, their body became a library. Wrinkled skin held stories. Scars were footnotes. Missing teeth were chapters. They were living history. Long before history knew how to write itself down. The night before writing. There came a moment. Much later. When humans began to feel something new. Not fear. Not hunger. Awareness. The awareness that moments passed and were gone forever. The awareness that memory faded. The awareness that stories could die. Before writing, history lived only in voices. And voices are fragile. A cough, a sickness, a fall, and an entire lifetime of knowledge could vanish. So people began to mark things. Lines on stone, shapes in clay, paint on cave walls. Not to make art, but to remember. A handprint on a wall was not decoration. It was a declaration. I was here. I existed. I mattered enough to leave something behind. That handprint did not know that thousands of years later, someone would stand in front of it and feel something stir. A connection. A quiet recognition. Not of the person, but of the humanity. The first nights of meaning. As humans stayed in one place longer, nights changed. They were no longer only about survival. They became about reflection. About sitting still. About looking into fire and thinking. Not just about tomorrow, but about yesterday. With stillness came questions. Why are we here? Why do we die? Why does the world feel so large? And we feel so small? No answers came. But stories did. Stories about spirits. About ancestors watching from the dark. About the sky listening. These stories did not need to be true. They needed to be comforting. They needed to give shape to an otherwise shapeless world. And slowly, without anyone realizing it, history began to gain weight. When memory became power, not all memories were equal. Some people remembered more. Some people spoke better. Some people could convince others that their version of the story mattered more. And so, quietly, without violence, power was born. The one who remembered became important. The one who spoke clearly became trusted. The one who could connect the past to the future became followed. History was no longer just survival. It was influence. And influence changes things. The first division. As groups grew larger, stories began to differ. One group remembered the river as generous. Another remembered it as cruel. One group believed the mountain protected them. Another believed it punished them. The same world. Different memories. Different histories. And where histories differed, distance formed. Not physical distance. Mental distance. This was the first division. Long before borders. Long before flags. The division of belief. People did not yet fight over land. They fought over meaning. Over whose story would be told. Over which memory would survive. Night falls again. Tonight, as you listen, you are doing something ancient. You are lying still. You are listening to a voice in the dark. You are letting stories wash over you, without needing to hold them tightly. Just like the first humans did. They did not know their nights would echo through thousands of years. They did not know their quiet moments would become the foundation of everything that followed. Cities, empires, wars, nations, all of it began in silence. The gentle truth of early history, the beginning of history, was not loud. It did not arrive with drums or banners. It arrived with breath, with firelight, with tired eyes staring into the dark. And perhaps that is why, even now, history feels different at night. Less demanding. less sharp, more honest. If your eyes are growing heavy now, that is all right. History does not need you awake. It only needs to be told. Slowly. Again. And again. Rest. The next part of the story will come later. When humans stopped moving, the nights changed again. They were no longer nights of passing through. They became nights of staying. Staying meant walls. Staying meant doors. Staying meant that some people slept inside, while others stayed outside. This was not planned. It was not announced. It simply happened. The first cities were not loud. The first cities did not arrive like legends. There were no trumpets. No grand openings. No sense of destiny. They grew quietly. A few houses near water. A place to store grain. A place to gather. Then another house. And another. Until one day, someone realized, we live here now. Cities were not built for glory. They were built for safety. Protection from the cold. From animals. From hunger. But safety has a cost. And that cost is control. When walls appear, so does power. A wall is never just a wall. It decides who is inside. And who is not. It decides who belongs. And who waits. At first, the wall protected everyone equally. But slowly, quietly, someone began to guard the gate. And the one who guards the gate decides who passes. Power did not arrive with violence. It arrived with responsibility. Someone had to count the grain. Someone had to organize labor. Someone had to remember agreements. At first, these people were trusted. Later, they were feared. The birth of authority. Authority was born not from strength, but from memory. The one who remembered the rules became important. The one who knew when to plant became necessary. The one who decided how much grain each family received became powerful. No crown. No throne. Just influence. And influence is dangerous. Because it is quiet. The first quiet violence. Violence did not begin with swords. It began with decisions. Who eats first? Who waits? Who receives less? Who is believed? Who is ignored? There were no screams. No blood. Just hunger that lingered longer for some. Just cold that bit harder for others. Quiet violence. The kind history rarely records. Night in an early city. Imagine a city at night. Not the cities you know now. No lights lining the streets. No sound of machines. Only darkness. Broken by a few oil lamps. Dogs sleeping near doorways. Guards pacing slowly. Inside a small room. Someone is awake. They are not a king. Not yet. They are a keeper of records. Clay tablets stacked beside them. Marks pressed carefully into soft earth. They are tired. But they know something important. If they control the record, they control the story. Writing changes everything. Writing did not make history honest. It made history permanent. Once something was written, it felt real. Even if it was incomplete. Even if it was biased. Even if it was wrong. Before writing, stories could change. After writing, they could be enforced. A written rule is harder to argue with. A written debt lasts longer. A written order can travel farther than a voice. And so, with writing, power learned to survive its own creators. The city remembers, even when people forget. People die. Cities remain. A ruler falls. A scribe dies. But the walls stay. The tablets stay. The records stay. Cities began to outlive generations. And when something outlives you, it gains authority over you. People began to serve the city, to work for it, to fight for it, to die for it. Not because the city asked them to, but because the city existed. The rise of hierarchy. Not everyone in a city is equal. They never were. Some live closer to the center. Some live near the walls. Some eat well. Some eat late. Some are remembered by name. Some are counted only as numbers. Hierarchy did not need cruelty. It needed structure. And structure needs obedience. People obeyed not because they were weak, but because disobedience felt dangerous. Not immediately, but eventually. The sound of control at night. Control is loud during the day. Orders shouted. Work demanded. At night. Control whispers. Curfews. Guards. Locked gates. A sense that movement is being watched. At night. People begin to feel that the city is not just a place. It is a presence. The first rulers did not sleep well. Those who held power did not rest easily. They knew something others did not. Power is fragile. One bad harvest. One angry crowd. One broken agreement. At night. Early rulers lay awake. Not dreaming of conquest, but fearing collapse. History does not record their fear. It records their success. The city and the individual. In a city, the individual becomes smaller. Not invisible. Just quieter. Your life matters, but only in relation to the whole. Your story matters, but only if it fits the structure. This is how history begins to choose. Not between good and evil, but between useful and forgettable. The forgotten majority. Most people in early cities left no record. They lived. They worked. They died. Their names were never written. But they built everything. They laid bricks. They carried water. They harvested grain. History stands on their backs, yet rarely looks down. Night falls again. As you listen now, imagine one of those people. Not important. Not powerful. Just tired. They lie down after a long day. The city hums softly around them. Walls hold the night at bay. And somewhere, far away from their small room, someone is deciding things that will shape their tomorrow. They sleep anyway. Because sleep is necessary. Because hope requires rest. The slow drift toward inequality. Inequality did not arrive suddenly. It drifted in. Like fog. At first, differences were small. Then they became normal. Then they became invisible. History rarely marks the moment when balance is lost, because it feels gradual. The city learns to remember itself. As cities grew, they began to develop identity. Names. Symbols. Stories about their founding. These stories were comforting. They gave meaning. They said, "This is who we are." But identity also excludes. It says, "This is who we are not." And once again, history quietly sharpened its edges, preparing for what comes next. Cities made war possible. Not immediately, but inevitably. Stored grain feeds armies. Walls protect power. Records organize control. Nothing violent has happened yet. Not loudly. Not openly. But the conditions are forming. Like clouds gathering. Without thunder. Rest before the storm. If your eyes are heavy now, that is natural. Cities are exhausting. They always have been. Rest. The story will continue. War will come later. But tonight, the city sleeps. And so can you. War did not begin with a scream. It did not arrive with fire falling from the sky. War arrived quietly, like a habit forming. Unnoticed at first. Unquestioned. Almost reasonable. Before war had a name. Long before people called it war. There were only tensions. Small ones. A disagreement over water. A dispute over land that felt unused. A memory of an old insult that never fully faded. No one planned destruction. They planned protection. Protection of crops. Protection of families. Protection of stories. And protection, when shared unequally, slowly turns into aggression. The first weapons were not made for killing. The earliest weapons were tools. A sharpened stick. A stone shaped to cut. They were made to hunt. To survive. But when survival feels threatened, anything can become a weapon. The first time a tool was raised against another human, there was hesitation. Fear. A moment where history could have turned away. But it did not. The quiet moment before violence. There is always a moment before violence. A breath held. A glance exchanged. A thought that says, "If I do not act, I will lose." History does not record that moment. It records the aftermath. And so war appears sudden, when in truth, it is slow. War begins in the mind. No one wakes up wanting to destroy the world. They wake up wanting security. They want certainty. They want borders that do not move. They want tomorrow to look like yesterday. And when tomorrow threatens to change, fear steps in. Fear whispers, "Prepare." Preparation becomes routine. Routine becomes expectation. Expectation becomes necessity. And suddenly, war feels normal. The first soldiers were not warriors. They were farmers, builders, people who had never imagined hurting another person. They were called to stand guard, to carry weapons just in case, to defend something abstract. A city, a boundary, a name. At night, they slept poorly. Weapons beside them. Thoughts heavy. They did not dream of victory. They dreamed of home. Training the body to ignore the mind. To fight. Humans had to learn to silence something inside themselves. Not anger. Empathy. Training did not just build strength. It built distance. Distance from fear. Distance from hesitation. Distance from the human on the other side. Once distance exists, Violence becomes easier. The language of war. War changes language. People stop saying people. They say enemy. They stop saying homes. They say targets. They stop saying death. They say losses. Language softens the weight. It makes destruction manageable. And once words change, actions follow. The night before the first battle. Imagine a night just before an early battle. No drums. No speeches. Just darkness. Soldiers sit quietly. Some sharpen weapons. Some stare into nothing. Some whisper prayers. They are not sure they believe. They do not know how history will remember this moment. They only know that the sun will rise. And when it does, something irreversible will happen. War teaches quickly. The first clash is chaos. Nothing like stories promised. No clear lines. No clear heroes. Just noise. Fear. Confusion. And then, silence. The survivors learn fast. They learn how to move. How to strike. How not to think. War educates brutally. Habit forms faster than guilt. The first death is unforgettable. The second is heavy. The 10th becomes distant. This is not cruelty. It is adaptation. To survive war, humans learn to feel less. And when feeling less becomes routine, war becomes a habit. The home that no longer feels the same. Those who return are not the same. The city looks familiar. The streets are unchanged. But something inside has shifted. Sounds are louder. Silence feels dangerous. Sleep is shallow. History records victories. It rarely records what follows people home. War expands. War does not stay small. It grows. One conflict demands another. One victory creates resentment. Borders move. Stories change. And each generation inherits not peace, but memory. Children grow up hearing which side they belong to. Which stories are theirs. Which old wounds matter. And so war continues. Even when no one remembers how it began. The machinery of war. As war becomes familiar, it becomes organized. Weapons improve. Strategies form. Roles are defined. War stops being an event. It becomes a system. A system that feeds itself. The distance grows wider. As wars grow larger, distance increases. Leaders are far from battlefields. Decisions are made in rooms, not trenches. The consequences travel slowly. By the time they arrive, the decision maker has already moved on. History remembers the decision, not the delay. Night after night. War does not end in one night. It stretches. Night after night. Fires burn. People wait. Waiting becomes exhaustion. Exhaustion becomes numbness. And numbness is fertile ground for repetition. The lie of the last war. Every war believes it will be the last. This ends here. This secures peace. This will prevent future conflict. History has heard this before. And history remains unconvinced. The quiet truth. War is not humanity's greatest failure. It is humanity's most persistent habit. Not because humans love violence, but because fear is easier than understanding. A pause in the darkness. If your breathing is slower now, that is natural. This part of the story is heavy. Let it pass through you. You do not need to hold it. The night is still here. And for now, there is quiet. War will continue. But not tonight. Tonight, you rest. Power does not announce itself. It settles. Quietly. Like dust in a closed room. At first, there were no kings. Only leaders who solved problems. People who spoke clearly. People who remembered things. People others listened to. But listening, when it lasts too long, turns into obedience. And obedience, when repeated, turns into rule. When leadership becomes distance. The first rulers did not sit above others. They stood among them. They worked. They ate the same food. They slept under the same sky. But slowly, their nights changed. They began to sleep indoors. Behind doors. Behind guards. Not because they wanted luxury. Because they were afraid. Power attracts attention. And attention attracts danger. The birth of the throne. The throne was not built for comfort. It was built for separation. To elevate one body above others. To make one voice carry further. To make one decision feel final. Once seated, a ruler could no longer blend in. They were seen. Always. And being seen constantly creates isolation. Crowns are heavy, even when made of gold. A crown is not decoration. It is a reminder. A reminder that every mistake will be remembered. Every weakness noticed. Every hesitation judged. Kings did not sleep easily. They dreamed of betrayal. Of rebellion. Of the silence that follows failure. History paints them as powerful. It rarely paints them as afraid. Empires do not grow overnight. Empires are not built through conquest alone. They are built through administration. Records. Taxes. Laws. Endless decisions. Empires grow because someone, somewhere, keeps saying yes to expansion. One more territory. One more city. One more border pushed outward. And each yes moves the ruler further away from ordinary life. The illusion of control. From a throne, the world looks orderly. Maps are neat. Borders are clear. Reality is not. Messages arrive late. Reports are incomplete. Truth bends as it travels upward. A ruler does not control reality. They control information. And information is fragile. The loneliest room in the empire. Imagine a ruler alone at night. The palace is quiet. Servants have withdrawn. Guards stand still. A single lamp burns. On the table, maps, letters, seals. Each one demanding a decision. No applause. No ceremony. Just wait. Every decision costs something. And the ruler pays first. With sleep. Power distorts memory. Rulers remember differently. They remember victories clearly. Failures, less so. Not always out of arrogance. Sometimes out of survival. To rule, one must believe. Their choices are justified. Doubt is dangerous at the top. It slows action and hesitation, invites collapse, the price paid by others. While rulers sit awake, others carry the consequences. Soldiers march. Farmers lose land. Cities are taxed harder. The ruler feels responsible. But responsibility is abstract. Pain is not. History records the rain, not the exhaustion beneath it. Empires age like humans. Empires grow confident, then complacent, then rigid. They struggle to adapt. Rules become traditions. Traditions become sacred. And sacred things are difficult to question. Change arrives slowly, until it arrives all at once. The fear of being remembered incorrectly. Power brings another fear. Legacy. Not how one lived, but how one will be remembered. Will history call them strong? Wise? Cruel? Rulers begin to shape stories. Monuments are built. Chronicles commissioned. Not for truth, for memory. When power separates the ruler from humanity, the longer someone rules, the harder it becomes to hear ordinary voices. Criticism feels like threat. Advice feels like challenge. Gradually, a ruler speaks mostly to equals. And equals are few. Loneliness deepens. The fall is often quiet. Empires rarely fall in a single moment. They erode. A tax too heavy. A war too long. A decision too slow. By the time collapse becomes visible, it is already irreversible. The ruler senses it first. In the silence. The last night of authority. Picture the final night. Not dramatic. No flames yet. Just a ruler sitting alone. Knowing that power is slipping. History will mark tomorrow. But tonight is private. Fear. Regret. Memory. And a realization. Power was never owned. Only borrowed. The cycle continues. When one ruler falls, another rises. Different face. Same pressures. Power changes hands. Loneliness remains. History moves on. Rest in the shadow of empires. If your thoughts feel heavy now, that is natural. Power is heavy. Let it drift away. You are not ruling tonight. You are only listening. The next part of the story will move away from kings and toward those history almost forgot. For now, rest. History does not belong to kings. It never truly did. When the crowns fall silent, when the banners are folded, when the names carved in stone begin to fade, history continues. Quietly. In places no one writes about. After power moves on, empires rise. Empires fall. But when they leave, they do not take the world with them. The streets remain. Houses still stand. People wake up the next morning and make bread. Children still cry. Water still needs to be carried. History books turn the page. Life does not. The ordinary is where history lives longest. Most humans who ever lived were not rulers. They were not generals. They were not remembered. They woke early, worked hard, returned home tired. They loved quietly. They worried often. They hoped without certainty. And yet, they are the reason history exists at all. The weight of being unseen. To be forgotten does not mean to be unimportant. It means your story was never written down. Millions of lives unfolded without record. Moments of joy, moments of grief, all gone, except in feeling. History is full of silence. Not because nothing happened, but because no one listened. The homes that left no trace. Imagine a small home. Not grand. Not poor. Just enough. A table. A place to sleep. A fire that warms the room. No historian will visit this place. No monument will mark it. And yet, this home held a lifetime. Arguments. Laughter. Fear. Hope. History does not record homes like this. But humanity is built from them. Generations passing like breath. One generation grows old. Another takes its place. Names repeat. Faces change. The world shifts slightly. Each time. Parents teach children what they remember. Children grow up believing those memories are truth. This is how history survives. Not in books. In people. The long echo of war and power. Even when wars end, they leave shadows. A ruined field. A broken family. A fear passed down without explanation. Power leaves habits behind. Rules. Borders. Stories of who belongs and who does not. These echoes last longer than empires ever did. History does not end. It only changes pace. Some nights are loud. Others are quiet. Some centuries move fast. Others feel like waiting. But history never stops. It slows. It pauses. It whispers. Even now. Tonight is also history. This moment is already becoming history. You listening. The room around you. Your breath. One day. This time will be distant. Unreachable. And yet. It matters. Because you are here. The gentle truth at the end. History is not a lesson. It is not a warning. It is not a judge. It is a record of being human. Messy. Repetitive. Fragile. Full of mistakes. Full of moments that mattered. Only to someone. Somewhere. At night. Why history feels softer in the dark. At night. We stop trying to control the story. We do not need heroes. We do not need answers. We only need to listen. That is why history feels different now. Slower. Kinder. Less demanding. The final release. If your thoughts are drifting, let them. You do not need to remember this story. History has carried itself for thousands of years. It does not need effort. It only needs time. A very old ending. Long ago, people sat by fire and listened to stories. They did not stay awake to the end. They drifted off. The story continued without them. And that is exactly how it should be. Sleep now. History will still be here when you wake. Good night, crescent moon.